Out there, beyond the rugged, wind-swept coast of Ireland, lies a mystery. It's a story whispered on the salt-laced wind. It's a tale told by sailors and fishermen for centuries. They speak of a phantom island, a place that is both real and not real. This place is called Hy-Brasil. It is not an island you can simply sail to. Legend says it only appears for one day every 7 years. It rises from the Atlantic Ocean, cloaked in a thick, swirling mist. Then, as quickly as it came, it vanishes again, swallowed by the sea and the fog, leaving only stories and questions behind. The idea of Hy-Brasil has captured the imagination for a very long time. It is a place of magic and wonder. Think of it, an entire island that slips in and out of our world. It's a powerful thought. The name itself, Hy-Brasil, is thought to mean Isle of the Blessed or High Island. It comes from the old clan name Hy-Brasil, the descendants of Brasil. In Irish folklore, this was no ordinary piece of land. It was a paradise, a place where the gods and heroes lived. It was a land free from sickness, sadness, and the passing of time. A land of eternal youth and happiness, hiding just beyond the horizon. For those who believe, Hy-Brasil is more than just a story. It's a promise. It represents a perfect world just out of reach. The legend says the island is hidden by a powerful enchantment. The mist that surrounds it is a magical veil, keeping it safe from the outside world. Only on that special 7th year does the magic weaken just enough for the island to be seen. But to set foot upon its shores, that was another challenge altogether. Many tried, filled with hope and dreams of finding this fabled paradise. They sailed west from Ireland, their eyes scanning the endless grey water for a sign. The stories of its appearance are fascinating. Fishermen would claim to have seen it. They would describe a round island with tall mountains and green fields. They spoke of strange animals and beautiful buildings, but when they tried to get closer, the island would disappear. It was like trying to catch a rainbow. This tantalizing nature of the island only made it more famous. It became a legend of the sea, a ghost on the waves. It was a story that passed from father to son, a piece of Ireland's very soul floating out there in the vast, mysterious Atlantic. It's one thing to hear a story told around a peat fire. It's quite another to see that story drawn on a map. For centuries, Hy-Brasil was not just a myth. It was a geographical fact, at least to the cartographers of the day. From the 14th century onwards, this phantom island appeared on maps made by some of the most respected mapmakers in Europe. It was shown as a perfectly circular island sitting in the Atlantic Ocean, a little way west of Galway Bay. Its presence on these charts gave the legend a powerful sense of reality. It wasn't just folklore, it was a destination. The first known appearance was on a map by Angelino Dulcet in 1325. He placed the island of Brasil just off the coast of Ireland. After that, it appeared again and again. It was on the Catalan Atlas of 1375, a masterpiece of medieval map-making. It was there on charts used by the great explorers. They saw this island on their maps and believed it was real. For them, the world was still full of unknown places. Why couldn't there be a hidden island out there? The maps told them it existed, so they believed it. They treated Hy-Brasil with the same seriousness as they treated Ireland or Britain. Seeing Hy-Brasil on a map changed everything. It transformed a local legend into an international mystery. Sailors from Italy, Spain and Portugal all knew of it. They would have seen it on their charts before they even set sail for the North Atlantic. This gave the island a strange kind of authority. It was a place that had been recorded, measured, and put in its proper place on the globe. The fact that no one could seem to land on it didn't matter so much. The sea was a dangerous and mysterious place. Perhaps they just hadn't been lucky enough or brave enough. Even as the world was being mapped with greater and greater accuracy, Hy-Brasil held on. It remained on nautical charts for an astonishingly long time, well into the 19th century. Mapmakers were often reluctant to remove places that had been shown for so long. They copied older maps, and so the Phantom Island was passed down from one generation of cartographers to the next. It was only removed when the Atlantic had been so thoroughly crossed and charted that there was simply no room left for a ghost. But by then the legend was too strong to die. The maps had made it real. The stories described Hy-Brasil as a paradise on earth. It was often called the Isle of the Blessed, This wasn't just a piece of rock in the ocean, it was an enchanted land, a place where the harsh realities of life simply didn't exist. Legends painted a picture of a world that was lush and green with a perfect climate. There was no winter, no hunger, no disease. The people who lived there were said to be beautiful and wise. They lived long, happy lives, untouched by the sorrows that plagued the mortal world. It was a place of eternal spring, a haven of peace and contentment. The inhabitants of this magical island were not ordinary people. Some tales said they were the Tuatha De Danann, the ancient godlike people of Irish myth. After they were defeated in battle, they were said to have retreated to the other world. This other world wasn't a separate dimension, but a series of enchanted places hidden within our own world, places like Hy-Brasil. Here they lived on, their magical powers keeping the island hidden from human eyes. They possessed great knowledge and lived in shimmering palaces surrounded by incredible wealth and beauty. The island was their secret kingdom. The descriptions of the island are filled with wonder. Rivers flowed with milk and honey. The trees were always heavy with fruit. Strange and wonderful animals, some of which glowed with their own light, were said to roam the forests and fields. The people of Hy-Brasil lived in a state of grace. They spent their days creating beautiful music, art and poetry. They were advanced in their knowledge, possessing secrets of science and magic that were unknown to the rest of the world. To stumble upon Hy-Brasil would be to find a utopia, a perfect society. This idea of a hidden paradise was incredibly powerful. For people living in a tough, often brutal world, the thought of Hy-Brasil was a source of hope. It was a dream of a better place. It was the idea that somewhere just beyond the horizon there was a world without pain or struggle. The story of Hy-Brasil wasn't just about a lost island. It was about the deep human yearning for perfection, for a return to an Eden-like state. It was a story that spoke to the heart, promising that somewhere, somehow, a perfect world was not just a dream, but a real place waiting to be found. With Hy-Brasil appearing on maps and its legends spreading, it was only a matter of time before people started to look for it. The quest for the Phantom Island began in earnest. Expeditions were launched filled with brave sailors and hopeful adventurers. From the port of Bristol, a city with a long history of exploration, ships set out into the vast unknown Atlantic. They were searching for this fabled land of riches and wonder. These were serious voyages, not just the whims of a few dreamers. They were often funded by wealthy merchants who hoped to find new lands and new sources of trade. These early explorers were sailing into a world that was still full of mystery. The edges of the known world were still fuzzy. Who was to say what lay beyond the horizon? The sea itself was a place of monsters and magic in the minds of many sailors. So the idea of a magical, disappearing island did not seem so strange. The search for Hy-Brasil was part of a wider age of discovery. It was a time when people believed that anything was possible. If Columbus could find a new world to the west, then surely someone could find Hy-Brasil. One of the most famous attempts was led by a man named John J. Jr. in 1480. He set sail from Bristol, a city buzzing with talk of new discoveries. His mission was clear: to find the island of Brazil. He sailed for 2 months, but returned with nothing but stories of empty ocean. The next year, 2 more ships, the Trinity and the George, set out on the same quest. They too came back empty-handed. But these failures did not stop people from trying. The belief in the island was so strong that they thought they had just been unlucky, or that the island's magic had hidden it from them. The search for Hy-Brasil became something of an obsession for the sailors of Bristol. For nearly a decade, ships left the harbour every year, searching for the elusive island. They were driven by a mix of commercial ambition and pure wonder. Finding the island would have meant immense wealth and fame, but it also represented the ultimate prize for an explorer: to find a place that existed on the very edge of reality and myth. Each failed attempt only seemed to add to the island's mystique. It was the ultimate challenge, a ghost that they were determined to catch. For centuries, the story of Hy-Brasil was one of failure and frustration. Many had searched, but none had succeeded. That is until the story of Captain John Nesbitt. In 1674, this Irish sea captain claimed to have done the impossible. He said he had not only seen Hy-Brasil, but he had actually set foot on its shores. His story became one of the most famous and detailed accounts of the Phantom Island. It was a tale that seemed to prove once and for all that the island was real. It gave hope to all those who believed in the legend. According to the tale, Captain Nesbit was sailing from France back to Ireland when his ship was caught in a thick, strange fog. They were lost and disoriented. When the fog finally lifted, they found themselves anchored near the shore of an unknown island. This island was not on any of their regular charts. It was a strange, unfamiliar place. The crew, amazed by their discovery, decided to go ashore to explore. What they found there was beyond anything they could have imagined. They had, they believed, stumbled upon the legendary Hy-Brasil. Captain Nesbit and his men described an island that matched the old legends perfectly. They said the island was inhabited by large black rabbits and a mysterious wise old man. This man lived in a great stone castle. He welcomed the sailors and gave them food and drink. He told them that the island was indeed Hy-Brasil and that it was enchanted. He explained that a powerful spell kept it hidden from the world. He then gave the captain gold and silver as a proof of his visit. The sailors were amazed by the wealth and magic of the place. When Captain Nesbit returned to Ireland, his story caused a sensation. He had proof. He had the gold and silver. His tale was published and widely read. It seemed to confirm everything that the legends had said. Another expedition was quickly organized, this time led by a Captain Alexander Johnson. He claimed to have found the island too, confirming Nesbit's story. For a time it seemed the mystery was solved. Hy-Brasil was real. But soon doubts began to creep in. Were these stories true, or were they just tall tales spun by sailors who knew a good story when they heard one? As the age of science and reason dawned, people began to look for more logical explanations for the mystery of Hy-Brasil. The idea of a magical, disappearing island started to seem less likely. Scholars and scientists turned their attention to the natural world. They wondered if there could be a scientific reason why so many people, for so many years, had claimed to see an island that wasn't there. They found their answer not in magic, but in the science of light and perception, the strange tricks that the sea and the atmosphere can play on the human eye. One of the most popular explanations is a type of mirage known as a fata morgana. This is a complex and honestly very realistic optical illusion. It happens when layers of air at different temperatures and densities bend light rays. This can make objects that are far away, even over the horizon, appear much closer and distorted. A fata morgana can make a distant ship, a flock of seabirds, or even a bank of clouds look like a solid island, complete with mountains and cliffs. It can appear shimmering and detailed and then vanish in an instant as the atmospheric conditions change. This scientific explanation fits the story of Hy-Brasil remarkably well. The island was often seen in a mist or fog, which are perfect conditions for these kinds of mirages. It appeared and disappeared suddenly, just as a fata morgana does. The west coast of Ireland, with the vast open Atlantic, is a place where such atmospheric phenomena could easily occur. A sailor, tired after weeks at sea and primed by the legends, could easily mistake a complex mirage for the fabled island. It wasn't that they were lying, they were seeing something that looked incredibly real. Other theories have also been suggested. Some believe that the island could have been a giant shoal or sandbank like the Porcupine Bank, which lies about 120 miles west of Ireland. In certain tidal conditions, or perhaps after seismic activity, it might have briefly risen above the waves, only to be submerged again. Another idea is that it could be a ghost memory of a real island that was flooded by rising sea levels thousands of years ago. These scientific explanations may lack the romance of the old legends, but they offer a fascinating insight into how our world can deceive our senses. The legend of Hy-Brasil is not an isolated story. It is part of a much wider and deeper tradition in Irish mythology. It's a tradition that is well obsessed with the West. For the ancient Irish, the West was the direction of the setting sun. It was the edge of the world, a gateway to the other world. It was a place of mystery, magic, and eternity. Countless Irish myths and legends tell of journeys to enchanted islands far out in the Atlantic. These islands were known by many names: Tir na Nog, the land of youth; Magmel, the plain of delight; or Emain Ablach, the Isle of apple trees. These mythical islands were all variations on the same theme. They were earthly paradises, homes to gods, fairies, and immortal heroes. They were places where time moved differently, or not at all. A hero might spend what felt like a few days on one of these islands, only to return home and find that centuries had passed. These were not just places of beauty, but also of danger and temptation. They represented a world that was separate from the everyday struggles of human life, a world that was alluring but also alien and unknowable. The story of Hy-Brasil fits perfectly into this tradition. It is in many ways a later version of these ancient myths. It takes the old idea of a paradise island in the west and places it on a map. It gives it a name and a specific behavior, appearing every 7 years. This connection shows how deeply ingrained the idea of a western paradise was in the Irish imagination. The sea was not just a body of water. It was a frontier between the world of mortals and the world of magic. And Hy-Brasil was a bridge between the two. This tradition of westward journeys also reflects a deep cultural memory. It speaks to the history of the Irish people as seafarers and explorers. They were a people who lived on the edge of a continent, looking out at a vast and empty ocean. It is only natural that their mythology would be filled with stories of what might lie beyond that horizon. The tales of these otherworld islands are not just fairy stories. They are expressions of a culture's relationship with the sea, with the unknown, and with the eternal human quest for a world beyond our own. One of the most famous stories of a journey to a western paradise is the voyage of St. Brendan the Navigator. This tale, written in the 9th century, tells of a real Irish monk who lived in the 6th century. According to the legend, St. Brendan and a group of fellow monks set sail in a small leather boat, a currach. Their mission was to find the Isle of the Promised Land of the Saints, a kind of Christian version of the pagan otherworld islands. It was a search for a terrestrial Eden, a holy paradise hidden somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. Their journey was an epic adventure that lasted for 7 years. This number, 7, is significant. It is the same number of years between the appearances of Hy-Brasil. This is likely not a coincidence. It suggests a deep connection between the two legends. During their voyage, St. Brendan and his monks encountered all sorts of wonders and terrors. They landed on an island that turned out to be the back of a giant whale. They saw pillars of crystal rising from the sea and fought off sea monsters. They visited islands of talking birds and islands of fire-breathing demons. Finally, after their long and difficult journey, they found the island they were looking for. It was a place of incredible beauty and peace, bathed in a divine light. It was a paradise, just as it had been described to them. They stayed there for a short time before returning to Ireland to tell of their discovery. The story of St. Brendan's voyage became incredibly popular throughout Europe in the Middle Ages. It was a story of faith, courage, and the belief that God's wonders could be found in the farthest corners of the earth. The story of St. Brendan is a powerful parallel to the legend of Hy-Brasil. Both are about a search for a perfect island in the West. Both involve a 7-year cycle. Both mix Christian beliefs with much older pagan ideas about the otherworld. Some people even believe that St. Brendan's voyage was based on a real journey and that he may have reached North America centuries before the Vikings. Whether true or not, his story shows how the idea of a blessed Western Isle was a central part of Irish culture, inspiring both saints and sailors to look west with hope and wonder. So, what are we to make of Hy-Brasil today? Is it a real place, hidden by magic and mist? Is it an optical illusion, a trick of the light, or is it simply a story, a beautiful piece of folklore? In the end, it doesn't really matter. The power of Hy-Brasil is not in its physical existence. Its power lies in what it represents. It is a symbol of the human imagination, of our deep and enduring fascination with the unknown. It is a testament to our need to believe that there is something more out there, just beyond the limits of our knowledge. The legend of Hy-Brasil speaks to a fundamental part of the human spirit. It is the same spirit that drove the great explorers to sail into uncharted waters. It is the same spirit that inspires scientists to look for new planets in distant galaxies. It is the desire to discover, to find what is hidden, to believe in the possibility of wonder. In a world that can often seem ordinary and predictable, stories like Hy-Brasil remind us that mystery still exists. They keep our sense of awe alive. They encourage us to look at the world with fresh eyes. For Irish culture, the story is particularly important. It is a thread that connects the modern world to its ancient mythological past. It weaves together the tales of pagan gods and Christian saints, of brave sailors and imaginative map-makers. It is a story that is born from the landscape itself, from the wild, beautiful west coast and the vast, mysterious ocean that lies beyond it. Hy-Brasil is a part of Ireland's soul, a phantom limb of the nation's imagination. It is a reminder of a time when the world was enchanted, and so the legend lives on. Even now, people stand on the cliffs of Galway and Clare looking out to sea. They watch the mists roll in and wonder, perhaps, just perhaps, if the light is right and the conditions are perfect, they might catch a glimpse of that fabled shore. The idea of a lost world, a hidden paradise, is too beautiful to let go of. It is a story that we need. It tells us that not everything has been discovered, that the world is still big enough to hold a few secrets, and that somewhere out there in the mist a perfect island is waiting.